U.S. military defense dropping mother of all bombs on ISIS in Afghanistan. The U.S. military has defended its decision to drop the country's most powerful non-nuclear bomb on ISIS positions in Afghanistan, describing it as a tactical move. The GBU-43/B Massive Ordnance Air Blast Bomb, MOAB, was dropped Thursday night on a network of fortified underground tunnels that ISIS had been using to stage attacks on government forces. The strike, in Nangarhar province near the Pakistan border, also killed 36 ISIS fighters, Afghan officials say. The U.S. military was squeezed Friday on whether the munition, known as the mother of all bombs for its extraordinary force, was necessary for the particular target. The GPS-guided bomb is capable of destroying an area equivalent to 9 city blocks. This was the right weapon against the right target, the commander for U.S. forces in Afghanistan, General John Nicholson, told a press conference. It was the right time to use it tactically against the right target on the battlefield. The blast destroyed 3 underground tunnels as well as weapons and ammunition, but no civilians were hurt, Afghan and U.S. officials have said. The U.S. military previously estimated ISIS had 600 to 800 active fighters in the area, but was unclear whether they had hoped to strike more fighters. Nicholson gave a vague response to a question by reporters on who exactly ordered or green-lighted the strike, saying only that he enjoyed a certain amount of latitude to make decisions in his chain of command. Nicholson also confirmed the strike was carried out in coordination with Afghan officials, and said that the mission had conducted rigorous surveillance before, during and after the operation to prevent civilian deaths. Let me be clear, we will not relent in our mission to fight alongside our Afghan comrades to destroy ISIS-K in 2017, he said, referring to ISIS regional branch. Afghan President Ashraf Ghani said he approved of the strike and that it was designed to support Afghan forces and U.S. forces conducting clearance operations in the region. But former President Hamid Karzai accused the U.S. of using Afghanistan as a testing ground for new and dangerous weapons. Scrutiny over U.S. strikes. The U.S. bomb was dropped as Washington comes under increased scrutiny over its military actions in the Middle East, including 3 U.S.-led airstrikes in the past month that are reported to have killed civilians or allies. On Tuesday, the U.S.-led coalition in Syria killed 18 of its own allies from the Syrian Democratic Forces, in what it described as a misdirected airstrike. The U.S. is also investigating 2 of its own strikes in Iraq and Syria, which Iraqi officials and activists in Syria say killed dozens of civilians. But U.S. President Donald Trump said Thursday that the Afghanistan bombing was another successful job. The Afghanistan bombing, along with the first U.S. military strikes against the Syrian regime last week, mark a dramatic change in attitude for Trump, who advocated an isolationist, America First foreign policy during his election campaign. In just the last week, Trump has overseen the use of some of the most powerful weaponry in the U.S. arsenal. He once said the invasion of Afghanistan was a mistake, though he later walked back that statement, saying that he always supported U.S. involvement in the country. A deafening blast. Residents in villages kilometers away from the target area felt Thursday's powerful strike as if bombs had fallen nearby. A local resident living around 2 kilometers, 1.5 miles, from the blast told CNN he heard an extremely loud boom that smashed the windows of our house. We were all scared and my children and my wife were crying. We thought it had happened right in front of our house, he said. I have witnessed a countless number of explosions and bombings in the last 30 years of war in Afghanistan, but this one was more powerful than any other bomb as far as I remember. Another Afghan man, 46-year-old Abdul, who lives 3 kilometers from the site, described the thick cloud of dust that formed after the deafening blast. we were unable to see each other at home because of the excessive dust inside the room," he said. "I was feeling that boom till the morning." Why now? Afghanistan's ambassador to the U.S., Hamdullah Mohib, said the colossal mob was dropped after fighting had intensified over the last week. U.S. and Afghan forces had been unable to advance because ISIS, which has expanded into Afghanistan in recent years, had mined the area with explosives. Locals told CNN that more than 3,000 families had fled the district in the past year or so since the militant group established its presence. One man, who did not want to give his name for fear of ISIS retaliation, said there were no civilians left in the area the group controlled. The region the mob struck butts up against the porous Pakistan border. The rocky landscape is dotted with caves and defensive tunnels, making it easy to hold and hard to attack, according to CNN International's diplomatic editor Nick Robertson, who has previously reported from the Afghan mountains. Afghan war at its lowest point. While the war in Afghanistan has largely slipped from public consciousness in the U.S., replaced by the conflict in Syria and ongoing tensions over North Korea, there are still around 8,400 U.S. troops in the country engaged in counter-terrorism operations. Those troops are separate to a wider NATO-led effort to train, advise and assist the Afghan army and police force. Testifying before the Senate Armed Services Committee in February, General Nicholson warned of a stalemate in the country. He told U.S. lawmakers the current troop level was insufficient and there was a shortfall of a few thousand advisors to train the Afghans. According to CNN national security analyst Peter Bergen, the war in Afghanistan is at its lowest point for the Afghans and their American allies since the Taliban were overthrown in the months after 9/11. The Taliban control or contest about a third of the population of the country, Bergen said, citing senior U.S. military officials. That's around 10 million people, more than the population ISIS controlled in Syria and Iraq at the height of its power during the summer of 2014, he added. First mob strike. This is the first time a MOAB has been used in the battlefield, according to the U.S. officials. The munition was developed during the Iraq War and is an air blast-type warhead that explodes before hitting the ground in order to project a massive blast to all sides. During the final stages of testing in 2003, military officials told CNN that the MOAB was mainly conceived as a weapon employed for psychological operations. Military officials said they hoped the MOAB would create such a huge blast that it would rattle Iraqi troops and pressure them into surrendering or not even fighting. As originally conceived, the MOAB was to be used against large formations of troops and equipment or hardened above-ground bunkers. The target set has also been expanded to include targets buried under softer surfaces, like caves or tunnels.